Hello everyone and welcome back. By now I believe that you have started navigating and selecting data quite comfortably in Excel workbook. But when we have a really massive workbook, it still does present a lot of challenges. So in this situation, one thing that can really help us is some of our view options. So before we step into the lecture straight away, let's talk about the topics we are going to discuss in this lecture. So the first one is view options in Excel. So here we are going to talk about some view options in Excel in detail. Alright, after discussing about the view options, we will move on to the split tool in Excel and we will discuss about it in detail. After discussing about the split tool, we will talk about the freeze panes tool in Excel. And in the last, we will discuss about the switching windows concept in Excel. Alright, so let's get started with the view options in Excel. Now, let's jump directly into our Excel application where we are going to observe and visualize the things practically. So here we are inside the same Excel workbook in which we were working previously. And in case you don't have this Excel workbook, kindly check out the description of this video where you will find out the link to download this Excel workbook. Alright? Now we will start by looking at the bottom right of the screen. To the left of the zoom slider, there are three view options. We have discussed about these three options in the previous lectures, but now we are going to discuss about them in more detail. So by default, we are working inside the normal view, but to the right of that, you will also see the page layout view. And this gives us a good indication of how the Excel workbook fits on the page and is very useful when we want to print our worksheet. Alright. Now to the right of the page layout view, we also have the page break preview option. And this is very good for getting an overview of the launch workbook. Alright, you can have a look. Now most of the time we are going to work inside our normal view. So I'm going to click back on that now. So here we are looking at this Excel workbook inside the normal view. Alright, so that's all about these three workbook view options. Now let's head up towards our ribbon now. So here we are inside the ribbon, and inside our ribbon, let me click on the View tab. So here we are inside the View tab, and here you will notice a lot of tools that we have just looked at. If you will observe all these workbook view options, you will notice that these are the same options that we have seen at the bottom right of our screen. Isn't it? Have a look. This is the normal view, this is the page break preview option, and this is the page layout view. So let me go back to my normal view. Now to the right of that, we also have some zoom tools available on the View tab. Now imagine your zoom percentage is 59%, and if you want to zoom your document to 100%, you don't need to use the zoom slider. You can simply go to the View tab, come to the zoom tools and click on 100%. It will directly zoom your document to 100%. Isn't it really simple? And one more thing I want to add up here is that if you find this tool really useful, don't forget, you can always add it to the Quick Access toolbar. So let me right click here and add it to Quick Access toolbar. And we can always go and grab this tool on the Quick Access toolbar. Now we are going to look at some of the checkboxes which will allow us to turn off and on some view options. For example, if you'd like to hide your grid lines which are visible here in the spreadsheet, you can simply untick the grid lines here in this section under the View tab, and once we untick the grid lines option, they will be gone. So that's all about the grid lines and some view options in Excel. Now to move ahead in this lecture, let's go back to the View tab and make the grid lines visible. So here I am in the View tab, and if I will click here, the grid lines will be visible again. So here we have our grid lines. Now as we got our grid lines back, let's move on to a very useful tool, that is Split tool in Excel. Now to work with this tool, we have to get back to our Excel application. So we are back inside the Excel application. So as the name suggests, the Split tool allows us to split the screen so that we can view different sections simultaneously. Now I'm going to take the pointer near the middle of my screen and then come directly here in the Windows section under the View tab and then hit Split. And now if you will observe carefully, we have some gray lines that have appeared on the screen. And what does that mean? It means that my screen is actually being split into 4 different sections. And if in case you find it difficult to work like this, you can simply go and double click on this middle split line and the split will be removed. And now our spreadsheet is divided into two parts, a top and a bottom. Now if I want to see some data at the top and compare it to the data near the bottom, I can simply come to my lowest scroll bar and scroll down until I get to the near bottom. And now you can see two different sections on my screen simultaneously. And in case you want to turn off the split, you can double click on this split line, or you can come up directly into the view tab and click it off. Isn't it really useful? So that's all about the split tool in Excel. Now let's move on to even more useful tool, that is the freeze panes tool in Excel. Now let's get back to the Excel application to work with this tool. So here we are back inside our Excel application. Now sometimes we want to be able to simply scroll down or scroll across and still be able to see the headings of our spreadsheet. Isn't it? And you can see at the moment, I cannot see the heading of my spreadsheet here. So to address this concern, I am going to bring this little scroll bar back up to the very first row, and now I will go into my view tab and grab this freeze panes tool up here. And if I will click the drop down here and say freeze top row. Now what it has actually done is frozen the top row of our spreadsheet. So have a look. If I will scroll down to the very bottom, you can observe here the very first row of my spreadsheet is not moving. It has been frozen up. But in this case, freezing the top row doesn't really help me. So to turn that off, let me go back to the freeze panes and hit unfreeze. Now the very first row of my spreadsheet is now free and ready to move. Have a look. Now I can easily scroll the whole spreadsheet. Now let's try something different. What I actually want to be able to do is freeze the top 3 rows of my spreadsheet along with the first column. So how am I going to do that? The trick to do this is to click in the cell directly right and directly below the columns and rows you want to freeze. So you can see here we are below the row number 3 and to the right of the column number 1. Now let me come up to the freeze panes tool and hit freeze panes. And if you will observe here carefully, some faint black lines have appeared here. But you will notice now when I will scroll down, the top 3 rows of my spreadsheet are fixed. And when I scroll right, my first column on the left hand side is also fixed. Now again, to turn off the freeze panes, I can go to this drop down and hit unfreeze panes. And our spreadsheet is back to normal. Isn't it really interesting? So that's all about the freeze panes tool in Excel. Now the last quick option we need to discuss is the option to switch windows in Excel. And to practice this tool, let's head back towards our Excel application. So here we are back inside our Excel application. Now we are going to discuss about the option to switch windows in Excel. This option of switching windows is useful when you have multiple Excel workbooks open. So let's get another Excel workbook open in our system. Now I am going to hit a shortcut key, that is Ctrl+O, and what it will actually do is open a new Excel workbook. So I am going to press and hold the Control button and then hit O. And here we have got an option on the left hand side to open a new Excel workbook. So I am going to click on New here. Now we have multiple options available in front of us, but we need a blank Excel workbook. Now we are looking at a new and fresh Excel workbook. But what about if I want to get back to the one I was working in previously? So let me go to my View tab, present right here in the menu bar. And here on the very right side, we can find an option to switch windows. And after clicking on it, I can now have a list of all my Excel workbooks that are currently open. And I can just click to switch. And here I am in the Excel workbook in which I was working previously, right? And if you don't want to go to the View tab and search for switching windows option, there is also a very useful shortcut key for doing the same, and that is Ctrl+F6 button. So if I press and hold the Control button and then hit F6, you can see it quickly switches me between my open windows. Isn't it really quick? So these are some view options in Excel to help speed up our workflow and make it easier to work with large sets of data. So that's all for this lecture. I am going to end it here and see you in the next one. Thank you.